The story of a Việt Kiều escaping by boat 1. Black April, Saigon, April 29th, 1975. The air was strangely suffocating. Minh, a former first lieutenant in the South Vietnamese Army, stood silently in his small house in Tan Binh District, eyes fixed through the dusty slits of the window. Outside, the loudspeakers droned. "Whoever is working, keep working. The revolutionary government will show leniency." Minh knew. It was all over. There was nothing left to cling to. The night before, he had gone to Tan Son Nhat Airport trying to catch a flight out, but it was too late. The crowd was chaotic, screams, gunshots. He returned home, heavy-hearted. His wife, Han, looked at him without a word. Their 5-year-old son, Nam, was sleeping in her arms, unaware that his life was about to take a dark turn. 2. The years of silence. After April 30th, Minh was not arrested immediately, but he was constantly monitored. The 10-day re-education summons turned into more than 3 years. Those years were hell. Deep jungles, hunger, malaria, public denunciations, and humiliation. When he returned, he was skin and bones. Their home had been confiscated, and the family now lived cramped in a shabby attic with rotting wooden walls. "We have to leave," Han whispered one night during a blackout. "Do you want Nam to grow up like this?" Minh looked at his son. He was writing with charcoal on an old newspaper, his back thin, hair sun-bleached. Minh's heart tightened. Boat escape. 2 simple words soaked in blood and tears. But Minh made his decision. 3. The night at sea. July 1978. A moonless night. Minh, Han, and Nam quietly left their home. After months of saving and selling everything, they bought 3 spots on a small wooden boat in Rachgia. Over 60 people were on board. Men, women, children, all silent. No one knew if they'd survive to see another day. The boat plowed through the waves. The engine sputtered, the air thick with oil, human odor, urine, and vomit. The sea rose like giant hands. Nam burned with fever. Han whispered prayers, clenching her husband's hand. On the 3rd morning, a large ship appeared in the distance. "We're seed," someone shouted. But they weren't. It was Thai pirates. Wearing shorts, wielding machetes and guns, they jumped aboard like wild beasts. They looted gold, belongings, and searched every person. Some women were dragged to the front cabin. Amidst screams and pleas, Han was taken. Minh rushed to her, but a rifle butt struck his forehead, knocking him down, blood pouring. That night, Han did not return. 4. Surviving hell. On the 5th day, the boat drifted to a rocky island near Malaysia. Everyone was nearly dead from exhaustion. Malaysian naval forces pointed guns at them, refusing them ashore. After hours of negotiation, they were finally allowed into Pulau Bidong refugee camp. Minh had no more tears to shed. His son suffered from severe diarrhea, lying limp in his arms. Minh carried him around the camp begging for medicine, porridge, water. Nights without sleep, he heard cries, prayers, and the sound of waves crashing on rocks, like the voice of fate. A 1.5 years passed like a ghostly existence. But then, a glimmer of hope. Minh's family was accepted for resettlement in the U.S., under the program for former South Vietnamese officers. 5. A strange land, a new life. March 1980. They arrived in California. It was cold, snow blanketing the streets, so different from the dry heat of the South. Minh took on any job to support his son, dishwashing, heavy lifting, janitorial work. At night, he studied English at a community center. He spoke little, rarely smiled, always burdened by the weight of loss. Nam grew up in a poor Vietnamese neighborhood, picked up English quickly, but was shy and had few friends. He never asked about his mother, as if, in his heart, she was just a fading shadow swallowed by the waves of that night. 6. Giving back. By 1995, Minh had opened a small auto repair shop. The Vietnamese community was improving. He got involved in community work, helping new arrivals, teaching English to the elderly, escorting people to clinics. He became known as Uncle Minh the mechanic, loved by everyone. Nam was now an engineer, working for a tech company in San Jose. He spoke fluent English, but still called "Baoi" with respectful tones. He didn't talk much, but every weekend he came home for dinner, listened to Kai Luong, traditional Vietnamese opera, and watched his father wipe down the old guitar, the only keepsake Minh had brought from his homeland. 7. The Return. In 2000, Minh returned to Vietnam for the first time in 25 years. His old house now belonged to someone else. Few old friends remained. He visited his parents' graves and lit incense for Han, a symbolic grave he had built in a U.S. cemetery. He stood on the Rach Gia beach, looking out to sea. The waves still crashed ashore, still whispered like the delirious voice of time. He wept, not from pain, but because at last he had lived. And he was free. Minh's second return to Vietnam took place in 2010, 10 years after his first trip back. This time, he no longer carried the weight of sorrow, but rather the excitement of a child returning home after many years, eager to witness the transformation of his motherland. As the plane landed at Tan Son Nhat Airport, Minh could barely recognize the Saigon he once knew. The city had taken on a completely new look. The streets were wider, the traffic was still dense but more orderly. Skyscrapers rose side by side. Shopping malls, restaurants, and modern cafes rivaled those in the United States. Young people dressed stylishly, spoke confidently, and were full of energy. Minh was amazed to see that Vietnamese people now used smartphones, paid with QR codes, and spoke fluent English in international restaurants. He returned to the old alley in Tan Binh District, where his home had once been before 1975. The house had been rebuilt into a spacious clothing shop. He didn't feel sadness. He simply stood quietly, his heart silently rejoicing that Vietnamese people now lived more comfortably and prosperously. The once dusty, pothole-ridden roads had been paved, and streetlights now lit up the nights. That evening, he took a stroll along Nguyen Hue Walking Street and saw families, couples, and international tourists leisurely walking under the sparkling lights. Saigon was no longer the panicked city he had fled in 1978. It had become a youthful, vibrant metropolis full of hope. Afterward, Minh traveled to Rach Gia, the hometown of so many painful memories. But Rach Gia also surprised him. The coastline from which his small boat had once set sail had been transformed into a beautiful seaside development, complete with parks, monuments, and straight roads lined with coconut palms. The little fishing boats had been replaced by high-speed ferries to Phu Quoc. He walked through the Rach Gia market and saw an abundance of goods, friendly vendors smiling and chatting. The market was no longer the muddy, chaotic place it once was. Children rode electric bikes to school. The schools now had sturdy iron gates, libraries, and even computers. Minh stopped by a seaside cafe, ordered a glass of iced milk coffee, and sat in silence, gazing at the deep blue ocean. The waves still rolled in, but no longer as a call to escape, but as a peaceful whisper from a reborn homeland. Minh sighed with relief. Inside, he no longer felt like a refugee, but a Vietnamese man who had returned to witness his homeland rise again from past sorrows. He said to Nam over the phone, "I think when I grow old, I'll come back to live in Vietnam. Life here is really good now. When you're old, it feels lighter living among your own people, hearing your own language, eating food from home." And for the first time in many years, in Minh's eyes, there was no sadness, only hope and faith.